It was announced Tennessee finished at number 17 in both the AP and the coaches poll to end the 23 season. So what's that mean about Tennessee in 2024? Some of these way too early rankings already out. It's January the 11th. What are they saying about Tennessee? That and a whole lot more. It's your Thursday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, good Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Vols. I'm your host, Eric Kane, @_Kane, or Locked On Vols on Twitter. A part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Big thanks, as always, for subscribing to the Locked On Vols YouTube channel, for downloading us wherever you listen to your podcast. That's how the show grows, and can't thank you enough for that. Gonna have a fun show coming up today. So, again, Vols in the way too early top 25 rankings and what we think Tennessee can be in 2024. A couple of questions from Saturday Down South posed ahead of the 24 season. That's coming up in segment 2. And then a hoops recap, Tennessee and Mississippi State. That is in segment number 3. So, again, Tennessee finished ranked number 17 in both the final AP and college football, or the coaches poll, USA Today coaches poll. And that marks the first time since the 2003-2004 season that Tennessee finished back-to-back seasons ranked inside the top 20. Again, you know, we want to complain and we want to be frustrated, and that's okay. But with an 8-win season, a 9-win season with a bowl game, that shouldn't be the expectation. That should not be, you know, what you strive for every single year. But it just goes to show you where the Tennessee team is compared to where it's been. And that's saying something. Again, credit to Josh Heupel, credit to this coaching staff and these players. I mean, it's been a good, 2-year run specifically, and even the first year was exciting and just totally different from what we were forced to endure under the Jeremy Pruitt regime, where Tennessee was scoring, 20 to 21 points per game on average. It was just brutal to watch offensively and defensively. I remember in the 2020 season, Tennessee lost 6 games to 25 points or more. It just wasn't great, right? And so even that first year had a whole lot to be excited about, just because of all the newness, just because it was so different. And then, of course, 10-2 last year, 11-2 Orange Bowl victory, wins over Florida, wins at LSU, wins over Alabama. And then this past year going 8-4, 9-4 overall with a Citrus Bowl win over Iowa. So it just kind of goes to show you, when you're finishing in the top 20 for the first time in back-to-back years since 2003 and 2004, how much progress this team has made. So what does that make publications think about the Volunteers heading into the 2024 season? I love these way too early polls because, again, so much can change between now and August. There's still prospects out there that are deciding on where they want to go to school right now in the winter transfer portal cycle. There's another cycle coming up later in the spring. Unfortunately, there's going to be some injuries over the course of the offseason or in fall camp. There's a lot, and maybe we're not done with the coaching carousel. There's a lot to be determined between now and August. And so I love these way too early top 25s. Athlon Sports has Tennessee at number 11. That's been the highest one that I've seen so far. So just outside the top 10, Athlon Sports has Tennessee at number 11. Sporting News has Tennessee at number 14. On3 Sports, where we are affiliates over there at volquest.com, has Tennessee at number 15. ESPN, the Action Network, and Pro Football Focus all have Tennessee at number 17, while Bleacher Report has Tennessee at number 21. So 6 publications think Tennessee is a top 17 team in the country heading into the 2024 season. Bleacher Report has Tennessee just outside the top 20 at number 21. So let's look at that Athlon ranking, shall we? And if Tennessee's number 11, well, who's right around Tennessee? No surprise, despite everything that Michigan stands to lose. We'll see about J.J. McCarthy and the quarterback, but Blake Corum and everybody else Michigan's going to lose. They're not going to be preseason ranked number 1 in some of these polls. Washington's losing Michael Penix Jr. and a bunch of others as well, so they're not going to be ranked number 1. Georgia, who, again, conversation for another day. If you're taking the best four, I'm not a Bulldog fan, but it's hard not to sit here and say that Georgia wasn't one of the best 4 teams in the country. But I rest my case. Georgia's at number 1. Number 2 would be, this according to Athlon Sports, number 2 is Alabama, and Alabama returns a lot. Jalen Milroe makes a whole lot of sense. Number 3 would be Texas. Quinn Ewers, quarterback, makes the difference. Okay. Number 4 would be Michigan. Number 5 is Ohio State. Now that's interesting because quarterback, what are you going to do at quarterback? I know you got some talents, waiting in the wings, if you will, but you are making a change at quarterback, and you're losing Marvin Harrison Jr., and you haven't beat Michigan in a couple of years. Ohio State there, number 5. Oregon at number 6, no Bo Nix. Number 7 is Ole Miss. So Ole Miss pretty high on this rankings, despite losing Quinshon Judkins. But, everything else Ole Miss has done in the transfer portal, plus Jackson Dart coming back. Jackson Dart's been a really good player for Ole Miss. When you look at the quarterbacks, Bo Wallace, Matt Corral, Archie, and Eli, there's not a whole lot of a long list of quarterbacks who have been really good at Ole Miss. Jackson Dart's up there. Jackson Dart really is up there. Of course, Tennessee got to see Jackson Dart 2 years. Actually, no, that was Matt Corral. Excuse me. Tennessee's never seen Jackson Dart. That was Matt Corral 2 years ago. Anyway, you've got Ole Miss there at number 7. Missouri. Interesting. Missouri there is at number 8. How good can the Tigers be coming off this 10-win season? They are losing some, but they bring back Luther Burden. They're bringing back Brady Cook. They lose Cody Schrader, which is huge. Penn State's at number 9. Notre Dame is at number 10. That's interesting. Of course, you lose your quarterback. And then Tennessee's at number 11. This is what Athlon Sports has to say about Tennessee. If you're looking for one of 2024's top breakout players, look no further than Knoxville's 5-star prospect and Nico Iamaleava, taking over at quarterback for Joe Milton. Iamaleava had an impressive debut in the Citrus Bowl win, which only increased the hype and anticipation for his 2024 season. The California native is supported by an offensive line that will largely return intact. That is true. As well as a solid cast of skill players that includes running backs Dylan Sampson, Cameron Seldon, receivers Brew McCoy, Chris Brazel II. Tennessee's defense has made progress in recent seasons under coordinator Tim Banks, but this unit still has room to improve after giving up 5.83 yards per play in SEC games in 2023. Edge rusher James Pierce is one of the SEC's top returning defenders. Not only is he one of the SEC's top returning defenders, James Pierce is one of the nation's top returning defenders. He will be a preseason All-American by every publication out there over the course of the offseason, so get ready for that. That is what Athlon Sports has to say about Tennessee. Teams around Tennessee are directly behind. First year in the SEC, Oklahoma, preseason ranked in the way too early top 25, number 12 by Athlon Sports. Clemson's there at 13, LSU's at 14, Utah is at 15. So we saw what Athlon Sports says. That's one extreme. Let's go read what Bleacher Report has to say about Tennessee and kind of who falls in around Tennessee in these rankings. It doesn't really give any descriptions, behind these teams, and they're kind of explaining their picks. But Tennessee comes in there at number 21. Directly in front of Tennessee, according to Bleacher Report, would be NC State at 20, Florida State at 19, Oklahoma State at 18, Kansas State at 17. Coming behind Tennessee at 22 through 25, Kansas, Liberty, USC, the Trojans, and Miami. So that's a little bit interesting. For giggles here, let's go to ESPN and see, where Tennessee is. Tennessee's at 17, but let's see what they say about Tennessee here at number 17. Tennessee said expected key losses: Joe Milton, Jalen Wright, Tyler Barron, Aaron Beasley, Jalen McCullough, Danico Slaughter, Tamir McDonald, Wesley Walker, Ramel Keaton. Trying to think if I would add anybody to that. Gerald Mincy. Well, that's about it. That's probably Kamal Haddon. Expected key additions: Brazel II, Jacoby Thomas, Jermond McCoy, Holden Stays, Mike Matthews, Jordan Ross, and Bennett Warren. All right, this is what ESPN has to say about Tennessee's 17th ranking in the way too early top 25. Volunteer fans get a sneak peek into the future with a 35-0 rout of Iowa in the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. With Milton opting out of the bowl game, freshman Nico Iamaleava got the start. He completed 12 of 19 passes for 151 yards with 1 touchdown and 3 more scores rushing. The Los Angeles native, that's incorrect, was the number 4 pocket passer in the 2023 ESPN 300. You guys know my thoughts on ESPN trying to cover recruiting because they don't have any resources to cover recruiting anymore because it's cheap. I digress. There are solid receivers returning in Squirrel White, Bro McCoy, Brazel, who was Tulane's leading pass catcher in 2023. It'll also help under center with Cooper Mays, tackles John Campbell, Gerald Mincy. See, they have that in here. I guess this is before Gerald Mincy made his announcement. Gerald Mincy's obviously not coming back. Shoring up the secondary will be a priority in the spring after 6 defensive backs enter the transfer portal. Well, actually it was 7. And all 5 of Tennessee's starters are not coming back. So that's what ESPN has to say about Tennessee. So again, Athlon Sports, way too early, top 25 here in January of 2024. Athlon Sports has Tennessee at 11. Sporting News has Tennessee at 14. On 3 has Tennessee at number 15. ESPN, the Action Network, Pro Football Focus has Tennessee at number 17. And Bleacher Report has Tennessee at number 21. Where would you rank Tennessee in the way too early top 25 polls here in January of 2024? That's my question for you. Love to hear what you have to say. And you guys can hit me up at _Caner and at Locked On Vols. You shouldn't have to worry about when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is a fast and easy way to buy those tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, easy-to-find tickets from every event in your area. Again, it's not just sporting events. It could be theater, concert, monster truck rallies, whatever's happening over there at the Food City Center, Thompson Bowling Arena. You can find those tickets on the Game Time app. Plus, with the lowest price guarantee, if you find a cheaper ticket in the same section that you got your ticket via Game Time, they're going to credit you 110% of that ticket. Hey, go to Game Time app, download that Game Time app if you'd like to, create an account, use the promo code Locked On, and you're going to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, I encourage you to create that account at Game Time. Game Time/Locked On, that promo code Locked On, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guarantee. More to come here on Locked On Vols. All right, guys. So a lot of times I sit down, I got a plan, I'm ready to record, and something happens, breaking news in real time. And at the time that I'm recording this, but by the time that you listen or watch this, you have already heard about this. But at the time of this recording, big time breaking news in college football. So I'm taking what I had in segment number 2, wadding it up and throwing it out the window. I'll get back to it at some point in time. Some good questions that we got over at Saturday Down South about the 2024 season. But it's funny, when I was prepping for this episode, one of the questions from Saturday Down South was, would this be it for Nick Saban in 2024? And prior to the breaking news that Nick Saban retired on Wednesday afternoon, I would have said no, man. I mean, this guy will coach, and I don't know if he'll coach out the entirety of his contract when he would have been 77 years old. But you can just tell he still loves it. He's still got so much left in the tank. He still wants to keep coaching. It's still a joy for him. And all those things may be true, but we never know when our time is not up, but when our time is done until it's done. And you just kind of have this feeling. And man, Nick Saban, the sports world was paying attention to Chris Lowe of ESPN when he tweeted and he reported that Nick Saban is retiring. And I know this is a volunteer podcast. I get it. I know that, we don't like Alabama. I get it. But some sports stories are bigger than fandom. And more than anything, this has direct correlation with Tennessee, because right now Tennessee has, over the course of Nick Saban's career, while at Alabama, and at least for the foreseeable future, because the third Saturday in October, in my opinion, is going to continue to be protected. Tennessee plays Alabama every year. We know for a fact Tennessee's going to play Alabama in 2024. Nothing's official beyond that, but you would believe that even though divisions are going away, And so Tennessee's not technically going to have that cross-divisional permanent opponent with Alabama. You still think that's going to be protected, and Tennessee is going to play Alabama every single year, most likely. I don't know. We'll see. But Tennessee plays Alabama every year is what I'm going to operate on right now. And with Nick Saban out, boy, the Alabama fan base is going to come back down to reality, understand how hard it is to be consistently at the top of college football, just like every other fan base in America, not named Georgia right now, and I guess, Michigan right now, newly claimed, champions. Nick Saban, he has been coaching since the 1973 season when he started as a GA at Kent State, linebackers coach at Kent State, Syracuse outside linebackers coach, DB coach at West Virginia, DB coach at Ohio State, DB coach at Navy, DC DB coach at Michigan State, defensive back coach for the Houston Oilers. Okay. In 1990, he coached at Toledo, Cleveland Browns defensive coordinator in 91 to 94, Michigan State head coach, a couple of seasons, 95 to 99, LSU head coach, won a national championship. He was at LSU in Baton Rouge 2000 to 2004, Miami Dolphins for a short stint there, 05-06, and then he's been at Alabama ever since from 2007 on. Nick Saban's Alabama coach teams have only lost to Tennessee 2 times. His first year back in 07 and in 2022 when Tennessee won. His last ever trip as a head coach at Neyland Stadium, Tennessee won 52-49 on the 40-yard knuckleball kick from Chase McGrath, the 5-touchdown game from Jalen Hyatt. Of course, the accomplishments go on and on. We're not going to have this conversation if he's the best ever, but doesn't matter how much of a Tennessee fan you are, you got to recognize that he is one of the best, and certainly in the conversation, if not the best, to ever do it. 7 national championships, 11 SEC titles, 1 MAC championship, 12 SEC division titles. He's a 2-time Paul Bear Bryant Award winner, a 2-time Walter Camp Coach of the Year. He won the Bobby Dodd Coach of the Year award. He's a 2-time College Football Coach of the Year, AP College Football Coach of the Year, 2-time Eddie Robinson Coach of the Year, Home Depot Coach of the Year in 08, Sporting News Coach of the Year in 08, Liberty Mutual News Coach of the Year in 08, Bobby Bowden Coach of the Year award in 09, 11, and 12, and he's been the SEC Coach of the Year 5 times, 03, 08, 09, 16, and 2020. Again, this is not a Nick Saban love fest. I'm just trying to show you, if you're unfamiliar or just want to hear it all stacked on top of one another, just how much winning this dude has done. Wild. I tweeted out, and I'm going to go share my screen here if you're watching on YouTube so you can read some of these comments. I tweeted out a couple of things yesterday. Tennessee's key 2025 recruiting target is in-state quarterback George McIntyre, and I think Tennessee's already in a really good spot there. People that are way closer to it than I am. I think Tennessee's in a great spot there already. I tweeted, Vols already in a good spot, but main competition is Alabama. I mean, think about it. It's going to be Tennessee or Alabama for George McIntyre. I think he's going to Tennessee regardless, but talk about the suspense. It's just not going to be there anymore for this decision, right? I also tweeted out, so where's Alabama going to go with this hire? It's got to be a big-time sitting Power 5 head coach, correct? Welcome to the new look coaching carousel. You can see some of these replies back to the tweets. Sean says, I bet it's got to be Dan Lanning. He's got to be a top candidate. Rob says either Lane, Kirby, or Jim would be the first calls, in my opinion. That's Lane Kiffin, Kirby Smart, Jim Harbaugh. Let's see here. Chris says Kirby, Sarkisian, who spent time at Alabama, Dabo, Bob Stoops. That wouldn't make sense. Lane, Heupel, in that order. Let's stay away from Heupel, shall we? At Vol says you got to go get Oregon coach Lanning. Butch Jones, there's a picture of Butch Jones. Scott says he's ready. I'm sure he'd be ready for it as well. Jonathan says crazy day. That'd be Ryan Day. Or I guess he's just saying it's crazy day. It is crazy day, but we'll say Ryan Day as well. Debbie says Kiffin, mark it down. Steven says Joey Freshwater. Titans Vol fan 22 says Steve Sarkisian. Johnny says if they're smart, they'll go get DeBoer. That'd be a really good hire. Another Kiffin tweet. Dylan says plot twist, Mike Vrabel. That would be a plot twist, to put it bluntly. Man, I'm interested to see what'll happen here because First of all, who wants to be the guy that follows Nick Saban? Nobody does. All of his guys that he had and he molded, they're all gone. I'm intrigued to see what happens. I really am. I mean, Alabama's going to go out and pay somebody. Say you go out and get a Lane Kiffin, which I honestly don't think it's going to be. Say you get a Jim Harbaugh. Say you get a Ryan Day. Say you get a Marcus Freeman. Say you get a Dan Lanning. Say, whoever you get, that's going to create such a ripple effect in college football. Isn't that wild? January the 11th, January the 10th, Nick Saban announces he's retiring, of course, because Alabama was in the college football playoffs, and so he wanted to honor that and coach out the rest of that. But, a late little carousel. I mean, things could be changing. It's wild, man. Huge news. More so than anything, though, Tennessee's games against Alabama in the future should get a whole lot easier, because I don't think that you're going to have the team stay at the top for as long as it did for a decade plus, like it did under Nick Saban. Continuously a top 3, top 4 recruiting class, winning of the SEC, national championships. Sure, there will be success at Alabama again. I'm sure of it. But will it be continued success like it was under Nick Saban? I don't think so. So that means as a Tennessee fan, things just got easier. That means for Tennessee football, things just got easier. And here on Locked On Vols, you celebrate that, right? You celebrate that. Crazy stuff. Also, do want to make mention, though, another caveat in this whole thing. You've got the transfer portal that's going to open back up for Alabama players with Nick Saban announcing his retirement, meaning there's a coaching change. So the transfer portal is going to open up for those Alabama players. It's going to be open for 30 days. So if you're Josh Heupel, you're sitting, okay, look at that Alabama roster. Oh, you enter the portal? Oh, you enter the portal? Oh, you offensive tackle, whoever you are, come on down. Or edge rusher, come on down. Or safety, come on. Whatever it is, if anybody wants to enter the portal from Alabama over the course of the next 30 days, Tennessee can be right there and say, all right, let's evaluate it. Not just Tennessee, but obviously coaches all across the country. That is one thing to consider. Alabama's players have the option now for the next 30 days to transfer. Interesting time. I'm going to call my shot right now. Don't know what will happen, but I'm going to say it's going to be Dan Lanning. Spent time as a GA at Alabama. He's got recruiting ties to this area, and there might not be a better coach that can navigate through the name, image, and likeness era than Dan Lanning right now. At least that's from what I've heard. So we'll see what happens. Crazy sports news. Not necessarily Tennessee football news, but SEC football news, college football news, and just sports news. Nick Saban's that big. Retiring after a magnificent run at Alabama and a long and lengthy successful coaching career that spanned Alabama and the NFL. Wanted to talk about that here on Locked On Vols because it's that big of a story. Tennessee football just got easier with no Nick Saban at Alabama. What more to come here? We'll talk about Tennessee basketball when we return right here on Locked On Vols. All right, FanDuel, it's America's #1 sportsbook. You guys know that. I talk about it all the time. 150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app, it's safe, it's secure, it's so easy to use, and you can find all these different ways to bet, like same game parlays. The new Explore tab allows you to search for more ways to bet as well. Back on the Parlay Hub, the best place to find those popular parlays, prop bets, spreads, totals. We love the overs here on Locked On Vols, and it's such an easy way to put some coin in your pocket. Go to FanDuel.com today/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon for 150 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. It's win or lose, $5 bet. If you put in FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, it is America's #1 sports book. A tough one for Tennessee last night. 77-72, the final score. Mississippi State wins at home. Avoids disaster when it held a really big lead there in the first half. A 15-point lead, in fact, with just under a minute to go in the first half. Tennessee tied the basketball game with less than 10 minutes to go, but Tennessee couldn't quite finish it. 77-72, Mississippi State over Tennessee, as the Volunteers now fall to 1-1 in SEC play and 11-4 overall on the season. Just kind of kind of a frustrating night, right? I mean, I understand Mississippi State's not that horrible of a football. Mississippi State is not that horrible of a basketball team. I understand that it was missing its best player for all up until 3 games, 2 games ago before this one. I get that it was a tournament team a season ago. I mean, it's not the worst loss in the world. It's probably going to be a tournament team this year. But I just can't get over this team losing to Southern at home by a point. I can't get over this team being ranked 246 in the country entering the game in 3-point field goal percentage. I can't get over some of the sloppiness of this basketball team that Tennessee really should have just handled easily. I mean, Ken Palm has Mississippi State ranked as the 29th team in the country. You have 34th is where Mississippi State ranks in the net. 1-1 now for the Bulldogs in quad 1 games. Tennessee, losing this basketball game. Now it's 4th loss of the season. And one of these losses are not like the rest, right? Dropped a couple of tough ones in Maui. Some of these losses are not quite like the rest. And that's this Mississippi State game here tonight. So really a tale of 2 halves. Overall, I'll say this. I mean, you can't expect only 2 players to show up and to win this basketball game. I mean, Zakai Ziegler, which I have no issues whatsoever with his shot selection there at the end. You know why? Because he scored 26 points, and Zakai made 4 3-pointers. I would have had no issue. I don't care where Dalton Knecht shot that basketball on the court if he was the one taking that final shot there as the seconds were winding down. You know why? Because he finished with 28 points, and he made 4 3-pointers. Because nobody else came to play. Nobody else came to play on the offensive end in this basketball game. So, sure, that last possession looked a little rush, and sure, it wasn't the best shot selection, but I'm sitting there watching with my wife and, her parents, and I'm just like, literally, there's no issue whatsoever with that shot selection. I have no problem with it because he's the only one that came to play. But, I mean, Tennessee, really, it's a tale of 2 halves. The Volunteers in this basketball game, for the game, shot 45%, which is not bad. In the first half, it shot, let's see here. Well, I can't, first half box. In the first half, it shot 33% from the field, which was just horrible. Anybody not named Zakai Ziegler didn't show up to play in the first half. Ziegler had 10 points, made a couple of threes. He was 4 or 5 from the field, had a couple of rebounds, had a couple of assists. Zakai Ziegler came to play in the first half. 10 points for Zakai in the first half. 5 points for Jonas Adu. That was it. Dalton Knecht had 2 points at halftime. And then you look at the second half box. Dalton Knecht, 26 points, meaning he had 28 points overall. Zakai Ziegler poured in 16 points in the second half. Again, on the offensive end, it was really just those 2 guys that came to play. Tennessee, a lot of turnovers as well in the first half of play. Let's see here. If I can find it, I had it written down somewhere. I can't find it. Tennessee had, okay, here we go. Tennessee had 10 turnovers. Tennessee had 10 turnovers in the first half alone. In the second half had 6 turnovers, but 10 turnovers alone in the first half. Just not getting it done. And what was really, really bad was, of course, Tennessee's 2 big men, Jonas Adu, Toby Awaka, foul out in this basketball game. Whereas you had Tulu Smith that did not foul out. And I mean, there was a lot of, pushing and shoving on both sides, if you will. Just is what it is. Just an ugly game. Tennessee was atrocious in the first half. Again, nobody came to play except for Zakai. Zakai continued his good efforts in the second half. Dalton Knecht joined him. And, that's really, really all you can talk about. I thought Jonas Adu played okay. Again, fouled out. He's 4 or 5 from the field. He had 5 rebounds. Could have stood to rebound a little bit better. You can't have this type of performance from your seniors. I mean, you can't have this type of performance from some of these super seniors. Santiago Vescovi in this basketball game, 2 points. Josiah Jordan James, 3 points. Those guys went a combined 2 for 12 from the field, 0 for 6 from three-point range. I mean, Santi had 4 assists, which is pretty solid. He had 3 steals, so I mean, at least he wasn't super unproductive. He was doing some things away from the basketball, at least with the basketball in his hands to go make shots. Josiah had 6 rebounds. He had 2 steals. He had 2 rebounds, or 6 rebounds, 2 steals. He had 2 turnovers. You got to have more from those guys. And we continue to talk about how this team is deep and deep and deep. And well, on nights like this, 2 players showed up, but that still wasn't enough. And Mississippi State, who again is not a horrible basketball team, likely is going to be a tournament team, especially if they continue to get rolling and Tulu Smith can hit his foul shots like he's been doing so far in 3 games. They're probably a tournament team. But this is a team that you should win. I mean, I kind of scoffed at the FanDuel spread there when we were talking about it on yesterday's show. Tennessee entered the game as a 2.5 point favorite, and I'm like, what's going on? Well, Vegas always knows, right? Tennessee loses by 5 on the road. So, important thing to remember, as frustrating as this game was, man, it's a game in January. We can't be like football. We can't treat basketball like football, all right? We can't live and die on every single game, because Tennessee's going to play 40 games this year or whatever. In football, you play 12 games. Okay? This loss sucks, but this loss isn't going to define your season. This doesn't mean that the team is broken. This doesn't mean that Rick Barnes should retire. I mean, we see it all on social media shortly after losses for any sport. I mean, I get it, the frustration, but it's disappointing. But you got to remember, it's January the 11th, really January the 10th when they played this basketball game. What did you learn from it? Can you move on? Can your super seniors come back to play? Can they give you something? Can Jordan Gainey give you something? Jordan Gainey in this basketball game, no points, 0 for 5. 4 of those were 3-point shot attempts. He did nothing, had 1 turnover. Jordan Gainey had 1 steal, okay? He did one thing in 9 minutes, and it was to tally 1 steal. You can't have that type of performance. You just can't. Is what it is, man. Minus 12 on the court for Javon Meshack. That was the worst for Tennessee at minus 12. Just not Tennessee's night. And man, when Jonas Adu fouled out with 5 minutes to go in the game, when it was a tie ball game, you knew it wasn't good. So anyway, tale of 2 halves. Tennessee, just a train wreck in the first half, erased a 15-point deficit, able to come back and tie things up in the second half. And had a chance to tie things up there as the seconds were winding down to end the second half, but ultimately just falls short by a final score of 77-72. So again, Tennessee 11-4 now, 1-1 in Southeastern Conference play, and the Volunteers will continue to stay on the road Saturday, head to Georgia for a noon Eastern tip against the Bulldogs. All right, everybody, appreciate you for being here today on Locked On Vols. Thanks so much for tuning in, for listening to kind of where this Tennessee football team is projected in the way too early top 25. Nick Saban retiring, had to react to that. We had to react to that. And, of course, a little hoops recap here to end your Thursday show. We'll continue to talk Tennessee football, everything you need to know heading into the weekend. And can Tennessee get some good news via the transfer portal as we continue on here out the rest of this week? You better hope so. All that and more right here on Locked On Vols. See you, everybody.